All right, so far we've talked about the reasons to believe, that faith is both good and it's also true, if the Bible's true, of course, and that's a reason to believe. We've also talked about the two sides of belief. It's not just about truth and information, but it's also about a heart thing. It's also about an attitude thing. And in this last video in this series, we're going to talk about the two keys to belief. If you're going to get to the place where you are going to put your faith in Jesus, that you're going to become a Christian. Again, if you're a skeptic, that's going to be a journey. It's not going to happen overnight. Don't be frustrated by that. But if you continue to pursue God, then you'll find Him. But how would you get there? What are the keys to that? What practical next steps do you need to take if you want to continue to pursue God and continue to give this thing a shot? Well, the first key is investigation. Keep investigating. Keep reading. Keep studying. Keep listening. Keep digging in. Don't just stop. Continue to investigate. You have to do your part in pursuing God. You can't just sort of sit back and expect God to reveal Himself to you if you don't put any effort into it. So your part is to continue to investigate. The Bereans in the book of Acts are a good example of this. These were a bunch of potential believers who were a little bit skeptical. When Paul first came and started sharing the gospel with them, they didn't just say, "Oh, okay, we'll believe it all." They dug into it. They looked into the scriptures. They wanted to see if what he was saying lined up with what the Old Testament said. They didn't just take it at face value. They dug in and they studied and they reasoned. And at the end of the day, they became Christians because they investigated. But the second key is conversation. Investigation isn't enough. You can't just find God by your own individualistic pursuit of God. God is designed for it to happen in relationship with God's people. The Apostle Paul's story is a perfect example of this. Paul, before he was a Christian, Paul was persecuting the Christians. Paul was a Jewish guy. He was a Pharisee. He was very religious, but he didn't believe in Jesus until one day, you can read about this in Acts chapter 9, he had this Damascus Road experience. On the road to Damascus, he meets Jesus. It was a miraculous thing. He meets Jesus. Jesus appears to him and he says, "Why are you persecuting me?" Now this rocked Paul's world. And then he became blind. God blinded him right there for 3 whole days. Now, God could have done anything He wanted to. God could have just, at the end of 3 days, He could have just given him sight and He could have revealed the gospel to Paul. He could have brought him through foundations and Paul could have become a Christian right there and the end of the story. But that's not how God did it, because that's not usually how God works. Instead, God spoke to a guy named Ananias, another Christian living there. And He said, "Ananias, you're going to go to Paul and you're going to share the gospel with him." And so Ananias went to Paul, and here's what happened. Instantly, something like scales fell from Saul's eyes, and he regained his sight, and then he got up and was baptized. Here's what I want you to get from this. If you're a skeptic who is genuinely trying to discover whether Jesus really is who He says He is, whether you want to become a Christian, it's this: don't just investigate for yourself. Get into conversation with God's people. Find a small group, find a good, solid local Christian church, find a mentor, another Christian. Say, "Listen, walk with me, help me have some of these conversations." Because in Paul's life, the scales didn't drop from his eyes until Ananias, another Christian, came into the equation. And for you, it might be the very same thing. God wants to probably use someone else to help you work through some of your questions and some of your issues. So yes, go ahead and investigate faith, read the Bible, but also make sure to have conversations with people who can help you to get there, people like Ananias. God made this promise in the Old Testament: "If you seek me, you will find me, if you seek me with your whole heart." God isn't playing hide and seek from you. If you're a skeptic, He doesn't want you to continue to be skeptical. He wants to reveal the truth to you, and then He wants to invite you to follow Him and become a pursuer of God.